Hey everybody, this is Jake Wynn from the National Museum of Civil War Medicine. We are here on the Wilderness Battlefield. We've moved just a few hundred yards from our previous site, still along the Confederate trench line here at Saunders Field, site of action on May 5th and May 6th, 1864. If you are watching this on our YouTube channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. That allows more people to see the video and join in the conversation. If you have any questions over the course of this video, please drop those into the comments section and we will get to those. We will write back to you with answers to those questions. If you have any comments for us, if you're enjoying these videos, where you're watching from, we always like to have that content in there. We get to interact with all of you out there, our wonderful followers of the museum. I'm joined today on site here with historian Don Fons, who is going to walk us through kind of an overview of the action that takes place here at Saunders Field on May 5th and May 6th, 1864, and then very specifically why we chose this location to film this particular video, because this site just behind us, we'll address this in just a moment, this was a site that deals with the casualties of war, casualties of this battle. Where do those who died on the field end up here at the Battle of the Wilderness? So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Don to give that overview of the battle. Thank you, Don. Thank you.
When General Grant crossed the Rapidan River and moved into this area known as the Wilderness, a thick, overgrown area of dense trees, General Lee determined that this is where he wanted to fight him, because the dense trees would neutralize Grant's advantages in artillery, infantry, and cavalry. So it kind of put Lee on a more even playing field, which was important since Lee only had about half the number of troops that Grant did. So as soon as he learns that Grant moves in this heavily wooded area, Lee comes thundering out from the west, past Mine Run into this heavily wooded area, and engages Grant here in the Wilderness. Initially, his Second Corps under General Richard Ewell is going to establish a position here along the ridge behind me, and is going to begin throwing up earthworks. Grant, meanwhile, is going to begin pulling his troops together for an attack against Ewell's position here. And throughout May 5th, there are going to be attacks up and down what was known as the Orange Turnpike, which is the road that's off here to my left. It's still an active road today. But Union troops were on that far side of the field, and they'd be charging across the field to attack Ewell's forces here. The battle started here and then later would extend farther up into the woods behind me as General Grant tried to outflank General Ewell's line, which he did not succeed in doing. The following day, the battle continued here, but on a much lesser scale, because the fighting now actually shifted to the south to the Orange Plank Road, where we'll be going a little bit later. When the armies finally moved on, this area was cluttered with wounded and dead soldiers. Thousands of men had fallen, wounded or dead, on either side of the lines here, and the soldiers did not have the time or the energy to care for most of them. And so when the armies moved on, many of the dead in particular remained behind. Especially the ones out here to my left. You can see the trench line directly behind me. The Union forces were attacking against that trench line, and those who fell in front of it could not be buried, because again there was no flag of truce, and consequently this was no man's land, and anybody who ventured into it was bound to be shot. So it would really be about a year later until the Union authorities got around to burying these soldiers. In June of 1865, just after Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, General Winfield Hancock, formerly the commander of the Second Corps and now the commander of what's called the Middle Military Division, which included the state of Virginia, is going to order a regiment of soldiers, the first veteran volunteers, to come back down to the Wilderness and to bury the dead from Wilderness and Spotsylvania, which Hancock knew from personal experience had been left largely unburied. And so this regiment comes down here and they take a position here at a nearby mine, and for the next couple of days they're going to scour the woods and fields around here, basically forming a long battle line and then moving forward slowly, covering a certain area of ground. Then they would shift over and then move back in the other direction, covering the next area of ground, and they would continue doing this until they covered this entire portion of the battlefield. When they came across the grave of a Union soldier who had been buried, they would see if they could find any identification, but they would simply leave him buried. And then they would place a wooden headboard over him with his name on it if he could be identified, or simply an unknown headboard if he could not be identified. Many of the soldiers, however, had never been buried. Their bones lay bleached on the surface of the ground. In those cases, they would have soldiers place these bones in sacks, carry them with them, and then eventually they would bury them in a temporary cemetery known as Wilderness National Cemetery No. 1, which is right up here behind me, just on the front side of the Confederate earthworks. Now, why did they put it there? There's really two reasons. One, that was where a lot of the carnage was. Not only a lot of battle casualties, but also a lot of burning. The field had burned and charred many of the wounded soldiers who were there and killed them. So there was a lot of corpses in this part of the battlefield. Second, it's right along the Orange Turnpike, and of course if you're coming here with wagons and coffins and things like that, you want to be as close to the roads as you can. So for those reasons, they built this first of two cemeteries right over here in the field just in front of the earthworks, and interred there, we don't know exactly how many, but somewhere between 100 and 300 soldiers were interred in that cemetery, which was then enclosed by a board fence to mark it off and keep the animals out. So this is where the soldiers on the northern end of the battlefield were buried. Later we'll go down to the plank road and see where those soldiers were buried.
All right, thank you so much, Don. I really appreciate that insight here. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll have more of these on-tour videos going to be uploaded to YouTube. Thank you all so much for tuning in with us. Again, if you have any questions, please drop those into the comment section and we'll address those. And make sure to like and subscribe to the video. And again, thank you so much, Don, for sharing your expertise with all of us. We'll see you next time.